I couldn't wait to get into the locker room that day. I opened the door and there's Bibles just shredded all over the floor, just pages ripped up. You could barely even see carpet. It was the most defeating thing I've ever witnessed in my life.
Ben couldn't believe that some of the guys on his college football team tore up the Bibles he had given them as a Christmas gift.
I was just at the lowest of the lows right there because I'd poured my heart and soul into trying to find my purpose. And not only did I fail, but I failed miserably.
Sad eyes open wide, staring up into the sky, waiting for a sign of life. Dry as a desert sun, need a drop of water on the tongue just to stay alive.
Ben Malcolmson thought he had failed miserably at following God's purpose. Little did he know what God had in store, though. Ben is our guest on this episode of GPS, God, People, Stories. It's an outreach of the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association. I'm Phil Fleischman. My co-host, Jim Kirkland, is off this week. Ben's story has a lot to do with football, so this seemed like a good time to share it since college football starts in a couple of weeks and the NFL preseason's already begun. But even if you don't know a single thing about football, Ben's story can still be for you because it's all about fulfilling God's purpose for your life. And Billy Graham will share a few words about that later in the episode.
When there are problems and pressures and we face difficulties and confusions and discouragements, we have to remember, what is God doing? What is His purpose in the world?
More from Billy Graham after Ben Malcolmson's story. And if you didn't know, you can hear hundreds of messages from Billy Graham online at billygrahamradio.org. Just look for the Billy Graham Audio Archives. Again, that's billygrahamradio.org.
GPS.
God.
People. Stories.
I grew up in Dallas, Texas, going to church every week. It wasn't until I got to college at the University of Southern California when I really encountered Jesus for the first time and really started a personal relationship with Jesus.
Ben Malcolmson's life changed in a lot of ways during his time at USC. Like he said, it's where he first came to know Jesus. It's also where he decided to pursue a career as a sports writer.
I wanted to be around sports, and I was a pretty good writer, so I figured, why don't I put the two of them together and be a sports writer for the school newspaper? And I got the call from the editor to cover the football team there at USC, and this was right in the glory days of USC football, #1 team in the country. And for the next 3 years, I got to go to every single home and away football game for USC, and it was incredible. I got to go to 2 Heisman Trophy ceremonies, and just an amazing experience.
The team won back-to-back national championships in 2004 and 2005, and almost won a third straight one in 2006.
They had 2 Heisman Trophy winners in back-to-back years, and then they had 3 in a span of 4 years. The best college football player in the country was on the USC football team. So it was just an incredible run. They won, it was something like 37 out of 38 games, and they were announced the team of the decade a few years later, and just all these awards and NFL players that are still playing today from those teams. Just an incredible time at USC.
Now, some of the team's wins and championships were later vacated by the NCAA, but at the time, the USC Trojans were the hottest team in college football. And as Ben Malcolmson entered his senior year, he wanted to shine a spotlight on some of the lesser-known players on the team.
And I was gearing up to graduate and wanted to do a good final story for the school newspaper. I didn't want to just go out with a whimper. I wanted to go out with a bang. And I got an idea, well, why don't I do a story on the walk-ons on the football team? It was kind of counterintuitive to do a big story on kind of the guys that get the smallest amount of attention on the team. And the walk-ons are the end of the bench guys, the guys that don't get scholarships to play in college, and they have to pay their own way to go to college and be a part of the team and all that. But they're a vital part of the team as well.
But instead of just interviewing walk-on players for his story, Ben decided to actually participate in the walk-on tryouts. So imagine Ben's surprise when 2 days later, he gets a phone call saying he'd actually made the team.
I honestly thought it was a prank. I thought Coach Carroll, the coach of USC at the time, I thought he was pulling a prank on me. Like, what better target of a prank than the student newspaper reporter? And I went up and talked to him the day I found out. He's like, no, you can catch the ball and you can run fast. We want you on the team. And so I was blown away because here at the time, he was probably one of the best college football coaches in the country. And he's telling me, who hadn't played football since 5th grade, that I can run fast and catch the ball. So it was quite the turn of events.
Is this for real? Now that I'm changing, you never know how far this could go. A new hope, some soul rearranging.
So instead of just covering the team for the school newspaper, Ben was now on the team.
It was unreal. I mean, even practices were a big deal. I mean, there were just dozens of cameras and reporters. And the year I was on the team, we ended up going 11-2. We won the Rose Bowl that year. We beat Michigan. We finished number 3 in the country. And just an amazing time, because throughout the year, I had to be pinching myself. It just running out of the tunnel, you look down, you're wearing the USC jersey and the pads and the helmet, and you see highlights on TV, and you're like, wow, I was there. And not only there, but I was suited up on the sideline.
And then when the season was over, another door opened up for Ben to stay with the team.
I ended up catching up with Coach Carroll a couple weeks later, and he ended up offering me a job to work for him there at USC to handle his media stuff, social media, online media, and internet and all that kind of stuff. And I jumped at the opportunity because here I got to continue to be around this football team that I enjoyed and loved so much, and that had given so much to me. Coach and I really got close in that time and developed an amazing relationship. And then he took the job up with the Seattle Seahawks in 2010, 3 years later, and asked me to come up with him. And moved up to Seattle and became kind of his right hand special assistant. And it's been an incredible run.
So just what does it mean to be a special assistant to an NFL head coach?
So my role right now is kind of a Swiss Army knife role. It's kind of a jack of all trades. And it's helping coach prepare for meetings and practice and film sessions and all this off the field stuff too. So whether it's charity or speaking engagements or all the different things he's involved with off the field, it's a blast. And I'm so fortunate. It doesn't feel like work most of the time, and just such an opportunity to be able to serve someone. And that's my favorite part about it, is I get to serve someone for my job, just day in and day out, and just serve so that he can be in the best place possible every single day.
Ben has an unlikely story, going from student journalist to walk-on football player at USC to working for the Seattle Seahawks. Ben wrote a book about his journey called Walk On, but the story doesn't end there. Remember when Ben mentioned that he first came to know Jesus in college? Well, from day one, that relationship with Christ really shaped Ben's attitude about being on the football team.
When I made the team, I knew almost from the moment I found out I was on the team that I was there for a reason. I had this deep sense in my heart. It wasn't the audible voice of God, but it was just this deep sense in my heart that God had me there for a reason, that he had a purpose for me in being on the team. And so I was pressing into that almost from day one, just trying to figure out, God, what is my purpose in being on this team?
Life is uncertainty, shrouded in mystery. Can you make it clear to me just what I'm doing here?
At first, Ben thought his purpose was to start a team Bible study.
And so I got a lesson ready, and I told all my teammates and passed flyers out. And the time came for our first Bible study, and no one showed up. And there's 100 guys on the team. You'd think that a couple other guys would show up, but there I was alone, sitting in the room, just kind of questioning and discouraged, thinking, well, I thought I was here for a purpose, but I guess I'm not. And so it took me a little while to get through that discouragement, and I get another idea that I'll start a prayer group for the team. And so I told all my teammates and passed flyers out, and the time comes for our first prayer meeting, and I'm the only one that shows up. So again, I'm sitting there discouraged and defeated and questioning my purpose and thinking, God, am I here for a reason at all? I'm just not seeing it.
But Ben didn't give up. Later